Good morning once again. My name is Charles House, and this is my boss and my wife, Martha. We feel that when you get your ballot, most people don't know anything about the judicial candidates, and that's the reason that we have this forum. And we hope that they'll be informative. You have a chance to ask them questions and also to watch their body language. All right, let me introduce a dear friend, Rita Topalian. Rita was born in Germany and immigrated to this country at the age of 5, and she didn't speak a word of English. After graduating from high school, she married and started her own business, self-employed since she was 18, and she initiated, developed, and successfully participated in many types of businesses, both service and retail. At age 30, she decided to pursue a college education. While running a business, being a supportive wife, raising children, she earned her political science degree from Cal State University. At age 40, and she's only 42 right now, she decided to go to school and ultimately received her Juris Doctorate from Western State College. At age 45, she began to practice and has practiced law for 35 years. During that time, she volunteered her services as a judge pro tem. Please give a warm welcome to Rita Topalian.
You know what I realized? If you were counting the numbers, you know how old I am. Women never tell their age. Anyway, thank you for having me. I'm here to introduce our moderator today, and it is Judge Robert Bonner. He is now retired, but he was a former partner in Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, and he continues to be counsel even though he's not actively on site over there. That's one of the largest law firms in the United States. He's also the senior principal of the Sentinel HS Group, which is a global security firm, and the firm specializes in providing strategic advice and counseling regarding two things: Homeland Security and customs and international trade security matters, law enforcement issues. So he's on that panel also. In 2001 to 2005, Judge Bonner served as a commissioner in the U.S. Customs Agency. And then when it was reorganized into the Homeland Security Department, he became the first commissioner of U.S. Customs. Before that, this gentleman is a very busy man. Before that, he was a commissioner, and he served as the administrator of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, which is a big deal in our country because of the massive amount of drug abuse we have. He's also a former member and chair of the California Commission on Judicial Performance. That is the body that keeps lawyers like us in line. They investigate the very, very few ones that need investigating. But he's got a whole bunch of stuff that he did. He served as a U.S. District Judge for the Central District of California. He served as a U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California also. He was an assistant U.S. Attorney in the Criminal Division. He was a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers. He graduated from Georgetown, and currently he is serving as chairman of the California Institute of Technology's Audit and Compliance Committee. And on that note, Judge Bonner.
Thank you, Rita, for that wonderful. And let's see if this is back on. I'm not sure I can. I'm just going to hold it. I want to welcome everyone here. The candidates, many of the candidates for judicial office, interested citizens, and media. At least some media are here. Thank you all for being here. I'm delighted to be at this forum once again, to moderate this forum of candidates who are seeking election to judicial office, specifically to be elected judges of the Los Angeles County Superior Court. That court is the largest and one of the most important trial courts of our country, not just our state. I want to thank particularly Charles and Martha House. I wasn't going to complete my sentence, but we're thanking them because they are the two people that have organized this once-in-a-kind forum, and they started this forum over 20 years ago. You can't hear? I got to be right here. All right. So I was trying to say something very nice about Martha and Charles' house, which is easy to do. And Charles but it's been for 20 years they have put together this forum. It's a one-of-a-kind forum where judicial candidates for judicial offices, Superior Court judges, can be heard. It can be a discussion. Questions asked of these candidates. One of the best and most interesting jobs I've ever had, I think Rita noted at that point of view. Yes. One of the best by far was being a judge. Being a judge of the United States District Court here in Los Angeles, the Central District of California. And I can tell you one of the most important public service jobs in our government is being a judge. Being the person who represents and is the very embodiment of justice within our government. This is the position that these candidates that are before you aspire to. Frankly, let me say, I don't know whether electing judges is actually a good idea, but it is our system here in California for the trial court when there's an open seat or where someone challenges an incumbent judge. I will tell you this, that since the public is electing judges, it is extraordinarily important that the voting public know something about, as much as possible, about who they are electing in these positions. Sadly, this is usually not the case. Where there's almost some media coverage of elected political offices, there's a seldom a case for elected judicial offices. Not only is there very little media coverage, but other than this forum organized by the houses, I know of no forums for debate and discussion among the candidates for these very important offices. I'm happy to note that this forum is being covered by the Daily Journal and also by KPPC, the public radio station here in Los Angeles, actually in Pasadena. Many people have come to me over the years, as they probably have some of you. Anybody who's a lawyer, they get this question at some point in time when there's an election for judges, and they say, you know, Rob, who should I vote for? And most of us have no idea who the candidates for judgeships are, much less how we should evaluate them. And it's really that, by the way, I got asked so many times that question that I finally gave in to Martha House and said, well, I'll moderate this forum just so I'll be able to answer that question when people ask me. As Rita mentioned, I'm going to call on each candidate who is with us to make a succinct statement or make the case, so to speak, as to why he or she is qualified to be a Superior Court judge and would make a good judge. Given the number of candidates with us, I'm going to ask each one of you to limit your opening statements to not more than 5 minutes. You'll get, by the way, somebody who will be keeping time out here will flash the 1 minute warning sign. Then after all the candidates have made their opening statements, we'll open it up for questions from the audience and any media that wishes to ask questions of the candidates. And as the moderator, I might exercise the prerogative of asking a few questions myself. The only limitation on questions is don't ask a candidate how they would rule in a specific kind of case that might come before him or her. That would violate the rules of judicial ethics for a candidate to in any way prejudge a case that might come before him. But almost anything else, by the way, is fair game. So what qualities should we be looking for a Superior Court judge? Here are the 5 key ones, I think, at least in my opinion. One is good judicial temperament. Second is intelligence, someone who is learned in the law. Third is decisiveness, the ability to decide issues and cases. Fourth is the ability to listen and also to communicate. And fifth is incorruptibility. Character really matters in this job. By the way, it's not just Rob Bonner who's saying this. Aristotle agrees with me on this part. Okay, let's get started. So we have over 20 candidates here, I haven't counted the numbers, who are running for one of the 9 contested judicial offices. 6 of these offices, by the way, are open seats, meaning there's no incumbent judge. But 3 of them involve a seat where there is an incumbent judge who is being challenged, as is allowed under our rules in our state. And I'm going to start with the incumbent, the situations where an incumbent judge is being challenged. And there, as I said, there are 3 of them. And I'm going to start by calling on the candidates for the office number 156. If any of you have the scorecard out there, it's office 156. And there are 2 candidates for that office, Albert Robles, and he's challenging judge, the sitting judge, who's here with us, Carol Elksman. So let's start with Mr. Robles, and then I'll call on Judge Elksman, and then we'll move on to some of the other 8 offices. Mr. Robles, step forward here. Here yet. Well, you know, that's really a shame because I think you said this for 10 o'clock. So I'm just going to note, if Mr. Robles, if he ever does show up, this is not really a very good sign to start, right? It's not a very good sign. Okay, it's not a very good start. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm actually wondering what I can check. But this is a big, big room. So do we have Mr. Robles? We have technical difficulties here. I don't know what to do if you can't hear me. I can speak louder.
The mic, you need to use the mic.
I don't know that I can get it any. Okay, right into it. Okay. Now I'm afraid to share this mic with anyone. Okay. So did Mr. Robles show up yet? Okay, my point was about Mr. Robles, you know, I was a judge. I expected attorneys to show up on time for court, right? And it troubles me a little bit that he's running against a sitting incumbent judge, and he's not here on time. He's also been rated not qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Yeah, well, we don't know why, because he so far hasn't shown up. But given that, I am going to call on the Honorable Judge Elkswick to tell us why you should remain a Superior Court judge.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think that's a commercial somewhere. I'm Judge Carol Ellswick. I'm for seat number 156. And just to let you know, I've been on the bench for 30 years. As of June 3rd of this year, it'll be 31 years. They say I get 5 minutes, so hopefully I will take a little less than 5 minutes, okay? I've been a Los Angeles Superior Court judge for 22 years out of that 30 years. I've heard over 60,000 cases, not 6,000, over 60,000 cases. My average calendar over a 60-day period is anywhere from 400 to 500 cases every 60 days, 60 calendar days. I do my best to ensure justice when attorneys appear in my court, members of the public, and every single litigant that comes into my courtroom, because that's my job. That's my job. I've served as the supervising judge of small claims and traffic departments. I've served as a site judge, supervising 10 judges and commissioners at the West Covina Courthouse during that period of time. I've also served in the EDP court, which is the early disposition court for felony cases. That's significant because when I'm presiding over those courts, I'm working with the district attorney, the public defender, the alternate public defender, and private counsel to resolve those felony cases, short of trial, which means that we do not have to spend tax dollars to have a trial, which means we do not have to subpoena police officers. We can keep them on the streets serving the public, which also means that victims of more serious crimes such as domestic violence, rape, child molestation, they don't have to come in and testify. But it also means that if a defendant wants to exercise his, her, or their constitutional rights, they certainly have the right to trial. And oftentimes we're able to resolve those cases short of trial. I've had the opportunity as a bench officer, as a judge, to preside over felony cases, felony trials, felony preliminary hearings. Those include murder, attempted murder, rape, robbery, child molestation, domestic violence, and the like. Those are not the fun cases, but those are the cases that I see on a regular basis. I've sentenced people to state prison. That is not fun. It's hard. It affects a judge's heart. But sometimes you have to do what is necessary. Sometimes I drive home and I realize just a couple of months ago that I'm driving home and that person that I sentenced to 36 years, that person is still in prison. That's where that person belongs because of the crime that that person committed. But it affects us as judges. On the other hand, the victim that that person violated is still a victim. I'm told I have one more minute. I've enjoyed the time that I've had on the bench. There's good days and bad days. Most of those days are good days, so just to let you know. It is a rewarding job, but it's a tough job. I hope that you understand that if you have any questions for this court, I should say not the court, if you have any questions for me, I look forward to answering your questions. And thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Altwick. And thank you, Judge Altwick, excuse me. And I hope you'll be able to stick around for some questions, but we're not going to get to that until we get through these opening statements. By the way, I was remiss, Martha House asked me to make some introductions, which I neglected to do in my introduction. And at this point, let me acknowledge that we had with us, we still have with us, the mayor of Whittier, Joe Vinatieri. I also saw in the audience, yes, there he is, the Honorable Ralph True, former judge of the LA County Superior Court. I should say retired judge of the LA County Superior Court. 26 years on the bench. And one of the best judges that graced the court here. And also we have with us Jessica Martinez, who is on the Whittier City Council. There she is, Jessica. Thank you for being here. We're going to turn to the next office in which there's a challenge to an incumbent judge. It's a little bit of an unusual one, but this is office number 3. I have my list here. There are three candidates for judicial office number 3. They are the Honorable Sherilyn Garnett, Frank Amador, and Tim Rubin. Now, I don't believe the Honorable Sherilyn Garnett is with us, but she does have a reasonably good excuse. She has been appointed by the President to the United States District Court for the Central District of California. So apparently she doesn't need to run for the Superior Court judgeship. She has, there are 2 other individuals, though, lawyers, I believe, that are seeking that seat. And I'll start by calling on Frank Amador, if he's here, and I don't know. My list doesn't indicate who's here and who's not. Is Mr. Amador here? No. All right, let me ask if Mr. Rubin is here. Do we have anybody from number 3? No? Okay. So that's a shame, but so we'll have no real basis to distinguish between these 2 candidates, other than which I may get to in a moment. There is an LA County Bar rating for the 2 candidates, which I think since neither one of them are here, I should inform our audience of. That is, Tim Rubin has been rated by the LA County Bar Association as well qualified for the Superior Court. Frank Amador has been rated not qualified to be a judge of the Superior Court. I can't tell you what's beyond those ratings, and since neither one of them are here, we're not going to be able to go into that. So that takes me to the 3rd judicial office in which a judge is being challenged, and that is Superior Court office number 116. And the incumbent judge in that office is the Honorable David Gelfand. I believe he sits in the San Fernando branch of the LA County Superior Court, and he's being challenged by Lloyd Handler, who I believe to be a deputy federal public defender. By the way, Judge Gelfand, I did speak to personally, and he has a previous commitment, so he cannot be here. But perhaps his challenger, Mr. Handler, is here. Oh, there we go. All right, somebody, we have a live candidate for you folks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? It's great to see such a large turnout so early in the morning on a Saturday. Just before moving on to my bit, I would like to acknowledge Rob Bonner, who, when I was a recent graduate of UCLA Law School, I considered him a real rock star of the LA legal community, both for being a judge and then leaving a lifetime appointment as a judge to run the DEA. Also, additionally, it's nice to see him again because we both clerked for the same federal judge at the U.S. District Court, Albert Lee Stevens, after law school, so I haven't seen him for a little while since Judge Stevens passed away. But anyway, as I said, my name is Lloyd Handler. I'm running for office 116. I am the only serious candidate to a sitting judge in an actual contested election. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was raised in a rural community in the high desert. My father was a civilian scientist with the Navy. However, his parents lived in Los Angeles, and we were down there all the time. I went here to law school at UCLA after getting a Bachelor's of Science degree at UC Davis. Initially went to law school to be an environmental litigator. Went to work for the Office of Criminal Enforcement for the EPA, got turned on to criminal law, which caused me to go to the district attorney's office to be in their environmental crime unit. Before I could get the experience necessary to be in that unit, however, I was doing street crime, which initially, since I knew several victims of serious violent crime, including my mother, several ladies who I dated in law school who had been sexually assaulted, I thought I could do street crime for a while I got my trial chops. However, I quickly learned that at least at the time, the district attorney's office was run in a way where everything was dictated by a 2-volume policy manual, and when you came across cases where I had problems with proof, perhaps because of an officer who had fudged something on a police report. Sometimes a victim had not been completely honest when talking to the police. And sometimes criminal defendants presented with equities that really mitigated their situation that the DA's office at the time could not take into account. And as I was becoming troubled by these issues, I was actively recruited by some of the public defenders who I was litigating against to join the public defender's office. I'm currently a senior trial lawyer with the LA County Public Defender's Office, although when my wife, before we were married, took a job up in the Bay Area, I did leave that office for 4 years to work in private practice. So I also have experience of running a practice, being a private lawyer, and I understand a lot of the pressures that private lawyers have attempting to juggle their various court commitments in different places. So that does make me a little bit unusual compared to some of the other public sector lawyers who are running for various offices. As far as my qualifications, I've been doing criminal litigation on one side or the other for 33 years. The LA County Bar Association has rated me qualified for the job, and more than 20 years ago, the State Bar of California certified me as an expert in criminal law. I have tried every type of case there is, and in my own practice with the public defender's office, as well as when I was in private practice, I took every bit of care for the first offender who was trying to vindicate their rights on a perhaps a DUI they didn't feel they were guilty of, or possession of drugs that they didn't have, as the much more serious cases, because I personally believe that every person's rights are important. Also, as far as my work, both as a prosecutor handling cases involving sexual assault victims, shooting victims, people who have been kidnapped, tortured, as well as my work with the public defender's office on the defense side, where you, first of all, the first thing you learn is most criminal defendants accused of serious cases have at some point themselves been victims of serious crime or abuse, and so it really makes you realize how much victimization can hurt someone and damage someone. And then I've also had to deal with the victims of my cases where I'm defending the clients and sometimes helping the defendants to understand what the impact they've had on people. I'm running because current strands of thinking about justice recognizes that we can't incarcerate our way out of our criminal problems by sending someone to prison for 3 or 4 years when they're going to come right back out, when judges have the opportunity to explore with counsel the root causes of the criminality and address those problems with constructive programming and services. We have an opportunity to fix the individual and reintegrate them into the community, and our first impulse should not be just to incarcerate people without first giving a good in-depth look as to whether or not we can solve the problem long term. My opponent does not feel the same way, and that's why I've chosen to run against him. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Handler. Again, I hope all of you are going to be able to stick around for some questions, but I certainly will have a question for Mr. Handler in terms of why he's challenging a sitting judge. I mean, going beyond what he stated there. In any event, let's move on to, boy, if we don't have some from the next office. This is office number 60, 60, and we have 6 candidates for this Superior Court judgeship, and I'm just going to assume we have some of them here. And so let me just start. I'll go in, I think this is alphabetical order actually, with Abby Barron, who is a deputy district attorney. Is Ms. Barron here? Oh, there she is. Could you step forward and tell us why you should be a Superior Court judge? Wait a minute, before you do that, could you stand there just for a moment? Another duty Martha has imposed upon me here. Thank you. And that is, we also have with us in the audience the mayor of Walnut, the city of Walnut, Eric Ching. Thank you for being here. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Are we good? Okay. Thank you so much for letting us be here. It's great to see everybody in person. It's been an interesting campaign season, mostly on Zoom. I'm very grateful to be here. It is a privilege. My name is Abby Barron. I am running for the judicial seat number 60. I have been an attorney for almost 15 years, but for 14 of those years, I have been a deputy district attorney. For 10 years of that, I specialized in special victims crimes, including elder abuse, child abuse, sexual assaults of both adults and children, and all kinds of domestic violence and family violence. This includes homicides. I've presented cases to the grand jury. I've done double jury trials, whether they're in the court with you at the same time. For the last 3 years, I've specialized in child molestation prosecution, working to protect those who are the most vulnerable in our society and who have been victimized usually by somebody they put their trust in. Working on those types of crimes specifically has shown me how important it is to look at each individual person that comes into a courtroom and to work for justice for that person, regardless of which side of the table that they're on. You have to make an individualized assessment and make sure that you are focusing on how to heal people and how to make sure that people are made whole, including crime victims. I am someone who has found it very important my whole life to volunteer in community service and to commit myself to my community in whatever ways that I can. From a young age, in my teens, I was volunteering working with the homeless and the elderly populations, doing projects that they needed, passing out food, and working with nonprofit organizations that help the community. Currently, I work as a council member, well, I volunteer rather, as a council member for an organization called Crime Survivors. And they provide resources and connections for those who have been victimized in terrible ways. They are not connected with the court system. It's something that I do in my own time. They provide resources such as therapy, self-defense classes, relocation resources, and things of that nature to make sure that people can heal and move on and live healthy lives. I have volunteered as an election poll worker to make sure that I'm involved in my local community in whatever way that I can. I have also done medical clinic work in Honduras and other places as well. I like to be involved with the communities because I want to serve. I believe that it is a privilege to serve. In my family, I grew up in a rural area, and that was something that they instilled in me and that I still hold true today. My job that I hold right now, I see it as a service, and that I am fighting for justice. I am there to be fair to everybody who comes into a courtroom, not just one side or the other. And I want to hear every single person, and as a judge, I want to create an environment for that. Both of my parents are disabled, and I've watched them be discriminated against in various ways through the years. I don't want anybody to feel that way in a court, because I have seen in my 15 years of service how important it is for a judge to create a good environment where everyone is respected and everyone is heard, and I want to be that person on the bench for Los Angeles County. It is a privilege to be able to serve, and I am seeking, in running for judge, the privilege to be able to serve the people of Los Angeles. I have the endorsement of over 60 judges here in Los Angeles County. I'm endorsed by our former district attorney, Steve Cooley. I'm endorsed by the Association of Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, as well as other police officer associations. There's lots of other organizations who have endorsed me as well. You can find them online. But I am someone who is working in my job right now to see justice across the board. It is so important, and I have seen firsthand what judges who are good can do to change the perspective of justice in this county. And I want to be a judge that can fight for that as an impartial jurist on the bench who can make sure that everyone is heard, respected. I am a woman who can bring intellect and empathy to the bench here in Los Angeles County, and it would be a privilege to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. And I should point out, I think as I go along here, I'm going to point out that Ms. Barron was rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. I'm going to call on now Sharon Ransom, who is also a deputy district attorney here in LA County, also been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. With that, Ms. Ransom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for coming out so early to listen to a bunch of people fill your heads with everything that's possible. My name is Sharon Ransom. I am running for Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge in seat 60. I am running to make a difference. I am a hometown girl. I'm born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. I was raised by a single mom. I attended all local schools, LAUSD schools, and I became a single mom at a young age, but I didn't let that stop me. I put myself through school at night while I raised my young daughter. I was a dispatcher for the Sheriff's Department for 17 years, so some of the cities that are being named, I know because I dispatched police to those areas, like Walnut, you know, so I'm very familiar with the Sheriff's Department. I decided to go to law school after my diagnosis of cancer, and I just wanted to do something different. I promised God if He spared my life, I would do something great with it. So I went to law school. And I was able to be hired by the Deputy District Attorney's Office. I've been there 17 years. I am currently assigned to the mental health unit. And in that unit, we focus on the treatment of mentally ill instead of incarceration. At 50, I see 50 to 60 cases a day of mentally ill people, and we try to figure out what to do if these people are competent to stand trial or if they need to be in a state hospital. And a lot of thought and decision goes into it. Prior to that, I was in the major narcotics unit where I handled cases of people smuggling kilos and kilos of drugs into our communities. Prior to that, I was in the elder abuse unit, which was really near and dear to my heart because I was able to handle cases where our elderly population were being victimized by neglect, physical, financial. I held the Department of Insurance grant, so when insurance agents like financial advisors, insurance agents were victimizing elderly who were alone, they would take advantage of them. I prosecuted those cases. And I also went around and spoke at senior facilities and to caregivers to educate the seniors on the latest and greatest scams. And you would be surprised that when I went in there, I'd say, how many of you are on social media? And all the hands would go up. So I had to tell them, like, these are the ways they're being targeted. So I took great joy in that assignment. I was also in the Victim Impact Program, where I handled cases involving domestic violence, domestic homicides, child abuse, child molestation, and rape. Those were some of my most well-founded units because I dealt with victims and seeking justice for victims. I'm also I teach project lead to 5th graders about the criminal justice system. I'm involved in teen court. It's a program to steer the youth, juveniles, away from the criminal justice system in hopes that we make better people. I think we need to start with the children so that they turn into better adults and we don't have so much recidivism in the criminal justice system. I'm really involved in community service. I'm a recruiter for our office, so I go out to law schools and I try to recruit diversity into our office because you need diversity when you're on the bench. You need to understand where people come from and what brings them into our system. It's not about seeing a file, passing it along, imposing a sentence, but really listening, being respectful to everybody, and understanding what brought this person into the system, because if we can work on their underlying problems, we can make a better society. We want safer communities. We want people whose needs are addressed, whether it be mental illness, drug addiction. So those are some of the things that I do, and that's why I'm running to make a difference. I went to school here, I never left, and so I believe that I am best fit in this seat to run as a judge because I am in the community. I am an experienced deputy district attorney. I've been rated well qualified. I've been endorsed by numerous judges. I've been endorsed by several clubs. I've been endorsed by police unions and pastors and community members who are all important in working in a collaborative effort to bring justice to our communities. I think I'm almost out of time, but I certainly hope I'll stick around. I have another meeting, but you guys are so important. I'll stick around for questions, and I certainly hope to earn your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ransom. And a third candidate for Judicial Office number 60 is Anna Sladky-Raytano. She's been rated qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Is she here? Oh, I had her indicated as here. All right. Okay, so the fourth candidate, Mark Rosenfeld, he is not here. He has been rated not qualified by the LA County Bar Association. The fifth candidate, Troy Slayton, is an administrative law judge. He's been rated qualified. Mr. Slayton?
Yes, Judge, over here.
There we go.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. House, for organizing, and Mrs. House, and thank you everyone for coming out today. There is so little information on judges, and for you folks to take time out of your Saturday to come and learn about judges is really so important, because who we elect as judges is of the utmost importance. Everybody knows who's running for Congress and who their local congressman is, but people don't have a lot of information about judges other than their name and sometimes those 3 words underneath their name. I'm Troy Slayton. I'm running for judge at Office 60. I'm currently an administrative law judge. I work for the state of California. And let me take you a bit back. I started working when I was just 5 years old. I was very fortunate enough in the 80s and 90s to be on some TV shows, and I supported my family. I put myself through law school. I put my brother through medical school. And my father, who was a Coast Guard veteran, taught me that to whom much is given, much is expected. And where a lot of my contemporaries got involved in drugs and alcohol, I took the straight and narrow path. Went to UCLA, went to Pepperdine Law School, and during law school, I started volunteering at the LA County District Attorney's Office, where they entrusted me as a law student to do 2 jury trials, from start to finish. And I realized that being a prosecutor wasn't really for me. So then I became a defense attorney, and I did that for more than a decade. And then I worked at a large law firm, and I handled cases beyond just criminal law on the prosecution side and on the defense side, but I got involved in business cases, both prosecuting and defending, and I got involved in family law cases. I've handled domestic violence restraining orders, both prosecuting and defending, civil harassment restraining orders, all kinds of family law cases, because we've heard a lot about judges in the criminal realm. And the people that are in my office, that are running for my office, my seat 60, are either lifelong prosecutors, which is great, by all accounts. They've done an amazing job. There's a career public defender as well. That's a really important job. But I bring something really different. I've been a judge pro tem for the Superior Court. I was a volunteer judge where I did that for about 6 years, handling dozens and dozens of times a traffic court. Judges do far more than just sit in criminal courts. There's family court, there's civil courts, there's small claims, there's traffic. Most people don't realize that the most experience, the most contact that the average person has with the court system is in traffic court. You got a traffic ticket. You maybe disagree with what happened, and you go to court. And most people can't afford and don't want to, on such a small case, to get an attorney. So people aren't represented. In small claims court, same thing. You're not allowed to have attorneys. And so the judge has to kind of be the attorney for both sides, has to explain to folks what's going on. And as a judge pro tem, and now as an administrative law judge, my goal is to make sure that every single person that comes before me feels like whether they won or they lost, that they got a fair shot. I've appeared before a lot of judges during my 17-year career. Hundreds of judges, all throughout the state of California. I've seen mostly a lot of great judges, some bad judges. And the thing that I took away from all the great judges that I appeared before was that they were prepared, they had read the pleadings, they had read the papers, or really listened to the people that were before them, and whether I won or lost, I felt like I got a fair shot. Even if I walked out of the courthouse having lost what I wanted, if I felt like the judge really listened, I felt satisfied and I felt like justice was done. And as a judge, if you entrust me with being a Superior Court judge, I'll make sure that every single person that comes before me gets that fair shot. Thank you so much for coming out. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Slayton. There's a final sixth candidate for office number 60 named Craig Strum. Don't believe Mr. Strum is here. Confirm that. He's not here. He has been rated not qualified by the LA County Bar Association. There seems to be a pattern here, by the way. If those rated not qualified don't tend to show up at forums to want to explain why they've been rated not qualified. In any event, okay, this takes us now to office number 67, and there are 3 candidates for office 67. I believe we have 2 of them here. The first is Ryan Dibble. He's a deputy district attorney. He's been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Mr. Dibble, are you here? Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. All right, well, it's great to be here. I'll echo the sentiments. It's really nice to have in-person meetings again. Everything virtually has been by Zoom to this point, so thank you for hearing us. I am a deputy district attorney. I've been a deputy DA for 16 years. I'm proud of that career. I've dedicated my life to public service. Just overall, to the people who are coming before the court and through the system, as it was mentioned before, judge being a little bit lower information vote compared to what we know about Congress people. But to the people coming through courtrooms, that's their congressional act. That's what's most important to them at that time in their life. And so a judge owes a duty before all else to hear from all parties and to give people the impression and to actually hear what's going on in court and to be fair, so that people leave with the impression that the justice system works. A little bit about me. I attended USC on scholarship for undergrad. I graduated with an accounting degree. I stayed on for law school there. I have 2 sisters who are both educators. My wife Nicole is a family law attorney, and we have 2 small girls at home. And I'm also an adjunct lecturer in law at USC, so I like to teach the law as well as to litigate it in court. I've also volunteered temporary judge, and I volunteer with something called Project Lead through the DA's office, which is a program where we teach 5th graders about the justice system, peer pressure, and bullying, and how to react to bullying, which is really fulfilling. My experience in the office is extensive. In my 16 years there, I prosecuted everything from theft to murder. I just finished 2 back-to-back murder trials in Long Beach, where I'm currently a violent crimes and homicide prosecutor. And I've also served in the Major Narcotics Division. In that division, I prosecuted and investigated cases and assisted in wiretap investigations of multi-kilogram trafficking of narcotics into our streets, where we were going after the high-level dealers who were profiting basically off the addiction of people in Skid Row. I had one case where there was a seizure of narcotics and money, where there was $600,000 of $1 bills found in the trafficker's house. And that tells you where those drugs are coming from and the impact that it has on our community. I also prosecuted opioid cases and doctors that profited off of overprescribing dangerous drugs to addicts as well. I've not only prosecuted those cases, but I've trained people on how to prosecute those type of cases in different states in the United States. I've gone to New Mexico, Louisiana, and Texas to train on that. I then was assigned to the hardcore gang division, where I prosecuted gang-related cases, mostly homicides, and looking at the big picture of combating violence, not only because it's right to hold people accountable, for what they do to victims, but also to the bystanders in our community who have to live in a community where this violence exists. And so it's felt great to make an impact that way. Throughout that process, I've also really enjoyed training officers, coroner personnel, others in the legal system, how to do their jobs better on topics like search warrant law and wiretaps and opioid prosecution. So in addition to prosecuting the cases in court, my point is that I've really sought the opportunities offered within my office to improve how law enforcement does their job and does it the correct way. Because we live in a time where there's criticism, some of it well-founded, about law enforcement, but what are we to do? Are we just to criticize it? As a prosecutor, I've always felt it's felt good to try to help people improve so that there's more confidence in our justice system. With respect to what my role is as a prosecutor, the way I view it is not only to prosecute cases and to hold people accountable, but to do so the ethical way, to do the right thing when nobody else is looking. I just want to leave you with the impression that as a judge, I'll hold people to that same level of accountability. I really appreciate your time and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dibble. Again, office number 67, we have with us, I believe, Elizabeth Lashley Haynes. She's been rated, she's a deputy public defender and been rated qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Is Ms. Lashley Haynes with us? There she is. All right, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here today with you all. I'm going to try to put this in here. Okay. Feels awkward holding a mic. So this is kind of a roadmap of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to let you know a little bit about who I am. I'm going to let you know a little bit about my background. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my vision would be or who I would be on the bench. So who am I? I'm Elizabeth Lashley Haynes, and I'm a deputy public defender for the County of Los Angeles. I've been doing that for about 19 years. In addition to being an attorney, I'm also a mom. I have 2 children. One is in elementary school and one's in high school, so I've got a full plate. I'm also a union member. My husband's a union member. We are public school educated folks, and we send our kids to local public schools. That's sort of an overview of my family and our background. I grew up in the Midwest, lived in New York City for a little while, and then came out to LA 20 years ago this May. And we built our family and our lives here in Los Angeles. My background, before joining the Public Defender's Office, I was a law clerk for a federal judge in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Rosemary Pooler. And it was in that experience of sitting in roundtables and watching that judge reason out her decisions and following her to New York City and participating and observing her oral arguments that I really became inspired to one day possibly want to do what I saw Judge Pooler doing. Within the Public Defender's Office, I've been a trial attorney, had trial assignments. I've tried everything from the small everyday misdemeanors to the very complex murder cases. I've had several different trial rotations. But additionally, I've worked in the juvenile court, and I've worked with juveniles who are charged with crimes. I had a specialized assignment within the juvenile court where I worked with children who were recognized to have disabilities. And I went into the school districts and I advocated in the school district to make sure that they were receiving the services that they needed to be successful. And hopefully, once our community and our services got in place, those kids could get diverted out of the system and not be on the path to prison. That was a very special assignment I had. Currently, I do 2 unique things. I practice in family law court, so I have experience in there. I've been doing that for the last 1.5 years. I defend contempts. So if someone is being accused of contempt, they need a public defender to help them out. So I go, so now I have a new level of experience in family law court. And finally, I'm litigating a brand new law called the Racial Justice Act. and that is where there are possibly claims of bias or racism that have infected someone's case. I bring those claims throughout the county. Now, what am I about? I'm going to read a really interesting quote that I found. It says, "An effective criminal justice system protects people and preserves public safety while respecting human dignity and ensuring equal justice for all under the law. After years of policies informed by tough-on-crime rhetoric that resulted in skyrocketing levels of incarceration and unintended consequences for individuals, families, and communities, the country has an urgent need to better orient the justice system." Now, I love this. I would have put this on my own website. But guess where I found it? It comes from the Koch brothers initiative. I found it online. They're big proponents of criminal justice reform. And I found that really interesting, so I researched more about it. And there was a criminal justice reform group that launched in 2019, and it brought together, I'm quoting from an article, Democratic and Republican governors, Black Lives Matter organizers, and the Koch Industries executives. Now, isn't that fascinating? So what that tells me is that this isn't a partisan issue. It's not a Republican, a Democratic, conservative, liberal. This is an issue that so many people in our country see. We need reform. We need a better system. Because the one that we have is not making our communities any safer, and it's not spending our tax dollars any wiser. So a lot of people think that public defenders are soft on crime. That's not it. We're smart on crime. So what I've seen after 2 decades in the courtroom is a revolving cycle of sending people in and out of jail and in and out of prison. And where do they come? They come right back into our communities. Would you rather have, as your next door neighbor, let's say somebody got into some trouble, right? And they get sent off. The majority of cases are somewhere in the middle. They're not the really heavy, violent cases. The majority are somewhere in the middle. Someone, your neighbor, gets into some trouble. They get sent off to prison, let's say 18 months, right? Would you rather they just get spit right back next door to you with no new options, no new resources? Or would you rather that they went through some treatment programs where they could get help for their addiction, employed, and become tax-paying, productive citizens? That's my vision for our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Lashley Hayes, and certainly raised an interesting question at the end there. Maybe we'll get to that at question time. The last candidate for Judicial Office number 67 is Fernanda Maria Barreto. I don't have her here. She is a Deputy District Attorney. She has been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar. We're going to move on now to Judicial Office number 70. There are 5 candidates for this office. 2 have been rated not qualified. I believe we have Matthew Vodnoy, who is an attorney, rated qualified by the LA County Bar here, but let me check. Mr. Vodnoy, do you want to step forward? This is your opportunity to make your case to be an LA County Superior Court judge.
Hello? Hi. Good morning. Nice to see all of you here. As has been said, we've been doing a lot of these on Zoom, so it's the first time to actually address a large group, and it's nice to see people interested in something that a lot of our community really doesn't know as much about. A lot of people get into the Senate race, the president, the mayor, the sheriff, but this is equally as important. It is the third branch of government, the judicial branch, and it matters because it impacts every one of us in this room because it is our community. I want to tell you just a little bit about me. I went to law school when I was 29 years old after doing a lot of random jobs raised by a criminal defense attorney who did tell me, it's not that I'm trying to get everybody off or that everybody's innocent, it's that I protect their rights and make sure that prosecutors are doing their job. I didn't understand this at all. And then I went to law school at 29 years old, and as I was in law school, I understood. And it came to me that I understood what justice means. I began to clerk. I clerked for the city attorney's office, I clerked for a judge, and I clerked for the district attorney's office, all here in Los Angeles. After graduating from law school, I then waited, because there was a freeze for the DA's office, until 2005, when I was hired to be a deputy DA here in Los Angeles. I was actually classmates with Sharon Ransom over here, and our paths crossed quite a bit, as did almost everybody to my left and to my right. Anybody that's sitting up here will have probably been either a DA or a public defender, and I can regale you with my wonderful trial experience, my complex murder litigations with multiple juries, or all the things that I've done as a DA, which most of the DAs here have all done as well. I could talk about, since 2019, being a defense attorney, where I've been representing individuals. And what I've done is sit next to the accused, and there are people here who do that as well. It is not your job that defines you or qualifies you to be a judge. Anyone who gets up here and says because of their job, they should be a judge, they are not giving you the whole picture. Because what matters is not just your experience, because we're all very experienced. I mean, not as much as Judge Ellswood, of course, and certainly not as much as McKay, who you hear about his pretty impressive career. Within my seat 70, the people I'm running against will tell you they've either been a career DA or a career public defender. And I respect this tremendously. I respect the fact that they've dedicated their careers to that endeavor and public service. I did that for more than 14 years. But I've also been a defense attorney. And now I am a defense attorney. And now I understand you cannot understand the other side without having done it. I have stood and hugged the father of a murdered daughter at the end of trial when I convicted that guy and put him away for the rest of his life. And that feels good. What also feels good is standing next to somebody who was wrongly charged with a crime, because that happens, and had them be found innocent and walk out a free person because they were wrongly charged. And that feels good. People to my left and to my right have done both of those things. But what they haven't done is both of those things. All of those things. They don't understand what it means to prosecute someone if you've only been a defense attorney, and you can never understand what it's like to be sitting in jail because you can't afford bail and be wrongly charged with a crime, unless you stood next to that person. So I'm not trying to discredit anybody else. I'm just trying to make sure you understand that I am a unique candidate that transcends one side nor the other. Because as a judge, you should not put on that black robe and continue to advocate for anyone. What you should do is protect the rights of everybody. As a judge, you should sit there on the bench with your robe and equally treat each respective side. Anybody up here that tells you they're trying to change the bench, that there needs to be change, they're asking you to vote for a legislator and not a judge. They want you to eat from a plate of heaping, steaming bias because they believe there is bias there right now. If you truly believe there is bias, run against the judge you think that is biased. Do what Lloyd Handler is doing in identifying the person that is biased and run against them, but don't try to take the bench saying that you're going to try to advocate for one side. Be fair and impartial. So the three things I want you to think about when deciding who it is you want to vote for. The three things, because they're equally important. Experience, temperament, and third, and most important, is not just your experience, because we're all experienced, and your temperament clearly matters, but it's also, will you be fair and impartial? Will you represent all and not some? That is what I will do. That is what I bring. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I ask for you to support me in my race. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bondoy. We have, just running down the list here, not with us, I don't believe, is Eric Alfonso Rice, and he's an attorney adjunct professor who's been rated not qualified by the LA County Bar. Not with us, unless he stands up right now, is Randy Fudge, Assistant City Prosecutor, also rated not qualified by the LA County Bar. Not with us is Holly Hancock, Deputy Public Defender, rated qualified by LA County Bar. With us, the last of the 5 candidates for office number 70 is Renee Yolanda Chang. She is a Deputy District Attorney, LA County, been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Ms. Chang.
Thank you, everyone. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am married and I have a tweenager and a teenager, and we live in the South Bay. And my parents immigrated to this country approximately 60 years ago, and they worked hard to support me and my brothers. So I learned how to work hard, and I learned the importance of a good education from them. So I studied hard. I went to UC Berkeley and received my undergraduate degree. I went to Columbia Law School, where I received my law degree. And when I graduated from Columbia, I had lots of different options. I had worked prior to that in a New York City law firm. But when I graduated, I realized that I wanted to go into public service. I wanted to give back to the community that had given my family so much. And I knew that I wanted to join the DA's office because while it is very important to have prosecutors and defense attorneys, because that is how our system is set up, every role is very important. For me personally, I knew that I wanted to help the victims of crime. I wanted to help promote public safety. So that's why I joined the DA's office 27 years ago. And I'm proud to have been there for 27 years. And so when I joined the DA's office, I've been all over the county. I've been to many different assignments, including misdemeanors, felonies, juvenile crimes, and I've developed an expertise in prosecuting crimes involving sexual assault, child molestation, domestic violence, elder abuse, and hate crimes, crimes involving vulnerable victims. And currently, I am the deputy in charge of a unit that prosecutes these crimes. So I supervise attorneys who prosecute these crimes in court. Not only am I a supervisor, I still, as a supervisor, handle trials as well. And a lot of these victims who I've dealt with over the years, these victims don't have money, or they're very vulnerable individuals, and they don't have a voice. And I know today, a lot of these victims are feeling like their voices aren't being heard. So I'm proud to advocate on their behalf. I'm running for judge, not with a political agenda, not to change any perceived political reasons for running. I am running because I feel that I am the most qualified. I have the experience, I have the temperament, I have the judgment necessary for this job. As a supervisor in my job, it is my responsibility to review the police reports that come in, and it is my responsibility to decide which cases get filed, what charges to get filed in court, or whether or not there's insufficient evidence and we should decline the case, and the case should never be brought to court in the first place. That's one of my responsibilities. Another one of my responsibilities is to authorize and approve plea bargains. So it's my responsibility to decide whether or not a certain defendant is appropriate to go to drug addiction counseling or domestic violence counseling, or if prison is appropriate. And my name goes on those reports, and I have to accept responsibility for those decisions. I have been rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association. That is the highest in my seat. As Judge Bonner said, 2 other individuals were rated not qualified. 2 individuals were rated qualified. And as such, I've been in the courts for a long time. I know my way in and out of a courtroom. And I have the endorsement of over 60 Superior Court judges who know me, and that includes former public defenders and defense attorneys who I had cases with, and they've endorsed me. I have the endorsement of the Metropolitan News Enterprise, which is the legal newspaper covering the courts. I have the endorsement of law enforcement groups, a victim advocate group, and I have the endorsement of all 3 prior district attorneys I worked with, Jackie Lacey, Steve Cooley, and Gil Garcetti. They endorse me not because of any political position, but they know me personally. I work with them, and they endorse me for my work ethic, my judgment, and my experience. And thank you all for being here, and I ask for your support and your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. That completes number 70. We're going to turn now to Judicial Office number 90 on your scorecards. This has 4 candidates. I believe they may all be here. And just, I hate to do this in midstream to everybody, but just in the interest of time, I know I said 5 minutes. I didn't mean you all had to take 5 minutes. So we're going to just, if we could, I'm going to just ask if the remaining candidates could maybe cut it to 4 or less. Anyway, with that in mind, on number 90, the first candidate I'm going to call on is Kevin Thomas McGurk. He's a deputy public defender. He's been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar. Is Mr. McGurk here? Oh, there's Mr. McGurk.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Hi. My name is Kevin McGurk. I'm a candidate for seat 90. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about myself before I go into my qualifications. My mom was born and raised here, moved to Colorado to go to school. Met my father, who had come back from the Vietnam War. They moved to Montana when he got a job at the FAA. I was born there. It did not work out for my parents. My mom and I moved back to Colorado, where I was raised. I went to school there, moved to Thailand for a bit to teach English, went to law school at Indiana. Thank you. Go Hoosiers. And then 17 years ago, I moved here because my mother had come back to be closer to her folks, and I moved back to be closer to her. I'm married to a public defender who does juvenile resource work. I have 2 daughters, 6 and 2, and I'm my daughter's t-ball coach. We do not have a game today, which is a good thing. We're struggling. We could use the time. In terms of the qualifications, as I stated, I've been a deputy public defender for 17 years. I've been in court almost every day during that time. For 13 of the last 14 years, I've been in felony trials. My last 10 trials involved serious or violent felonies, what we call strikes. My last 2 were murders. I have about 50 open cases right now, including multiple homicides. I'll be in court Monday morning. So what I hope you're getting with me is someone that has not just courtroom experience or trial experience, but experience trying serious, complex cases. I've been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association, which deals primarily with experience, temperament, and integrity. 3 things I think form the backbone of a good bench officer. That's the requisite experience, I believe. That's the requisite experience. I hope to blend with that requisite experience the right experience. What do I mean by that? I mean some diversity of perspective. You know, in the last 10 years, 43 open seats have gone to the voters, and 90% went to prosecutors, and 0, not 1, went to a defense lawyer of any kind, public or otherwise. And that may seem strange, considering that's half the courtroom. And particularly now, considering that we've had some rapid changes in criminal law in the last 2 to 4 years. And we have an implementation problem in some of our courts, not all, but enough, where the law is being applied not as of today, but as of 2 to 4 years ago, which is also a civics problem. And part of those changes involve some alternatives to deal with root causes of crime for folks suffering from mental illness or military trauma, substance abuse. It's the defense that coordinates those psychologists, treatment specialists, counselors to implement the new laws. It's the defense that has a better understanding of what programs are working, which ones aren't. They're not all built equally. Who may be a good candidate for one, who may not. It's topical experience that you may want to consider. Another thing, in my line of work, we are forced to deal with a wider variety of folks at a personal level, right? To talk about what brought them into the criminal justice system, as opposed to through investigating officers or reading reports. It's topical experience that can be helpful in trying to facilitate just outcomes, asking some different questions. Now, that does not mean that prosecutors cannot be good judges. I know several judges with prosecutorial backgrounds that are outstanding. I'm fortunate that some of them have endorsed me, many of them. I know many prosecutors now that would be great judges. But you have a lot of great candidates to consider. This is a very formidable group. And I think that diversity perspective is one component to consider among all the other things. Because it's not enough. I'm not saying vote for me because I'm a public defender. The solution for going 10 years without electing one is not to spend the next 10 years electing just public defenders without any thought of their individual characteristics. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying take that in consideration of a lot of other factors, such as, has the candidate displayed the right courtroom experience? What's the quality of that experience? Have they displayed the right temperament, the right integrity? These are things you need to consider, the whole package. Just having a unique background without more just makes you an interesting person. At the end of the day, it's about applying the law faithfully, thoughtfully, pragmatically to the facts, irrespective of the political winds swirling outside the courtroom. It's your courtroom. This is a lease without an option to buy. All I'm asking is the opportunity to serve as best I can, to thoughtfully, when there's judicial discretion the law allows, to bring my experience to bear and do the best I can to let justice prevail. That's it. It's not about being hard on something or soft on something. It's about bringing the experience I have, the courtroom experience, the integrity, the temperament, to do the best job I can to preside in your courtroom if you give me the opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGurk. The second candidate we have for the office, Judicial Office number 90, is Melissa Lyons. She is a Deputy District Attorney, also rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Ms. Lyons.
Good morning, everyone. Again, echoing thanks for being here. Knowledge is power, and you've taken the power into your own hands by taking the time to educate yourselves. My name is Melissa Lyons. I'm running for seat 90, and I'm running to be, or continue to be, a part of the decision-making process. As an immigrant, I understand the power and reach of a decision. My family and I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old from Jamaica. We moved to a small town in northeastern Iowa, population 7,000, where we were the only black family in our town. Not on the block, not in the neighborhood, but literally in the entire town. And there were some challenges. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that. There were absolutely challenges. There were definitely challenges that related to my race and bullying related to my race. But ultimately, I became a part of my community and thrived in my community. By the time I graduated high school, my peers had elected me class president all 3 years. And that was because of my involvement with my community and the kindness that the people of my community, with the exception of a few, ultimately showed. And so it is that one decision that someone made to give my parents the opportunity to work in this country that allows me to stand here before you today running for judge. And it is because of how important decisions are that I'm choosing to run for judge of the Superior Court. I have been a deputy district attorney for 16 years. I am currently the supervising deputy district attorney for the Compton Juvenile Division. Prior to that, I spent a third of my career in the sex crimes division, prosecuting sexual assault cases against adult and child victims. About half of that I spent at Stewart House. You guys are a little far away from Stewart House, but for those of you who don't know, Stewart House is located in Santa Monica, and it is a location where we have a multidisciplinary team with the Los Angeles Police Department, Department of Children and Family Services, as well as the DA's office, the therapists, and child advocates at Stewart House, and we work together to have good solutions for our child victims. Before that, I worked all across Los Angeles County at various assignments, as they do move us around quite a bit. And that's only a part of my experience.
That's sort of the professional aspect of my experience. I've done 85 trials in my time with the office, which I will say, because you have to make a decision, is more than either of my opponents by a lot. And that is part of the experience that you get to consider. I went to undergrad at Northwestern University. I went to law school at Loyola Law School Los Angeles. I am a coach for Loyola Law School's trial advocacy team, again, which is a part of experience. Because being able to teach and being able to help someone understand and learn is an excellent quality for a judge, because that is what you do from the bench, day in and day out, for the people that come into your courtroom, whether they be victims, defendants, plaintiffs, or attorneys. But more importantly, or as importantly, as what I do in my 9 to 5, I think, is also what I do from 5 to 9. Because you are electing a complete person. And a lot of that has been spent during community service. I've been a board member for Global Girl Project. The Global Girl Project is a leadership program for young girls from underdeveloped countries where they come for leadership programming and they develop a project for their community because they live in that community. They know what their community needs. And when they go back home, they get a little scholarship for implementing their community project. And we're teaching them how to engage themselves. It's not just telling you what you need to do, but showing you how to do it for yourself. I've taught free cup water classes in the Summer Night Lights program, which is put on by the Gang Reduction and Youth Development Office, providing free activities in the park in the summers in gang-impacted neighborhoods because violence increased during the summers, they noticed. And so it was giving people something to do during the summer so families had a safe place to go. If you want to talk about requisite experience and temperament, I do have a unique background. But in addition to my unique background, I also have the requisite experience to make me the best candidate in seat 90. You have to make a choice. And if you look at the qualifications and our backgrounds, I think you will see that I am the best choice. And I hope to earn your vote. I've been rated well qualified, and the Met News, it has also endorsed me, and I invite you to read that article as it does compare me to the other candidates, including the one that's not here. Thank you for your time, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leon, Ms. Lyons. And the next candidate is not with us, Nasser Corey. He has been rated, an attorney rated not qualified by the county bar. The last candidate for office number 90 is Leslie Gutierrez, Deputy District Attorney for LA County, rated qualified by the bar. Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Leslie Gutierrez. Thank you for being with us today. Bear with me as I thought. I've been sitting in front of the AC for an hour, so I'm kind of shivering. I'm a mom. I have a 3-year-old at home. I also have 2 stepkids, a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. My husband is a sergeant with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in economics. I immigrated to the United States when I was 22 years old on my own because I was having issues in my own home country with anti-Semitism. I come from France. My family is originally from Morocco, and they also moved to France because of anti-Semitism. So I'm hoping that I'm the last one that has to do this, and that I'm going to be, in the United States for the rest of my life, as well as my children. I graduated from Southwestern Law School in the top of my class. I was the top 1%. I was within 4 years of immigrating to the United States and not speaking English fluently. So it tells you that I had to put a lot of hard work and dedication into my studies. I was working at the same time. So I was at the library a lot and late and early. I'm a deputy district attorney. I've been a deputy district attorney for the last 10 years. For the last 6 years, I've been in a unit that prosecutes child molestation, child murder, domestic violence, and elder abuse. I've tried murder cases. Just this year, I've tried a murder, and a few months ago, actually last month, I've tried a case that involved the sexual molestation of a child who was 8 years old. I want to become a judge because I want to help the community. I'm a public servant. I'm the daughter of a public servant. My dad was a police officer, and my mom was a teacher. As a deputy district attorney, I've been in the trenches every day. I've been in court every day for the last 10 years. I've observed the judicial system. I know what works, and I know what needs improvement. I've walked along victims, and I know their needs. I know what it's like to have a child on the stand telling what happened to them. I know what it's like to have domestic violence victims reliving their trauma, because I've been there and I've talked to them. And I know that for them to be able to comfortably tell their stories, the judge has to be empathetic, patient, and respectful. And that's what I intend to do. I know that at this time, victims feel like they're not being heard. I hear them tell me all the time that they feel like they're not being heard by the judicial system. And I think this needs to change because victims have rights the same as defendants. As a prosecutor, every day I make sure that defendants' rights are honored because that's what justice demands. I will continue to do that as a judge. In my court, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, whether you're a victim, a defendant, family, member of the general public, you will be treated with respect because that's what you deserve. You will be heard. I will be patient. I am known to be someone who is compassionate, to someone who is just, someone who is smart. I'm known to be someone who is hardworking. I'm respectful. I'm known to have integrity. And I'm also known to be courageous. I'm known to do the right thing no matter the cost all the time. And to that end, I'm endorsed by many people. You can look at my website. One of them is Steve Cooley, who is the former deputy district attorney in Los Angeles County. I'm also endorsed by many unions. I'm endorsed by the Association of Los Angeles Sheriff Departments. I'm endorsed by the LAPD union, by the Los Angeles District Attorney Union. I'm endorsed by judges and attorneys who support me because I have the integrity, the knowledge, the experience to make a great judge. And I hope you join them, and I hope that you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Now that brings us to office number 118. We have 6 candidates for the office. In the interest of time, 2 have been rated not qualified. No, actually 2 are rated not qualified. I don't believe they're here. I'll mention their names, Sean Thiever and Carolyn G. Young Park. But 4 have been rated well qualified. So this is probably, I mean, there's still going to be no differentiator here that the county bar has given us for these 4 candidates. And I'll call on the first one right now without further ado. Clint McKay, Supervising Administrative Law Judge. Mr. McKay.
Thank you. I left home when I was 15. Put myself through high school. I drove a cab. I worked as a building contractor and maintenance man. Put myself through the University of Michigan. Got an honors degree in psychology. I was the first man to graduate with women's studies, University of Michigan. Went to law school. Tried my first case in 1978, which, for those of you who are counting, is a few years ago. Okay? And then I went, after law school, I got an MBA from the University of California at Berkeley. Then I practiced law for 25 years. Then I became a Deputy Attorney General for the Attorney General State Department of Justice, California Department of Justice, where I represented the medical board. I was a statewide liaison for the Board of Psychology, Board of Acupuncture, and I wrote the practice manual for the Emergency Medical Services Authority, which governs paramedics. Okay, in that job, I specialized in prosecuting doctors who dealt drugs, who were mentally ill, and who killed or severely injured children. That was my thing. Children has always been my thing. Okay, I joined the board of the Exceptional Children's Foundation. I became its chairman. Was on the board for 9 years, was the chairman for 2. It's the largest children's charity in California. That's my thing. Always has been. After I left the Attorney General's office, I became an administrative law judge. I did that for 7 years. In that capacity, we did all the foster care cases, all of the Cover California cases and disputes with the people who wanted to be insured through them or were insured through them and were unhappy, and all of the low-income Medi-Cal cases. Those are people below 138% of the federal poverty line. I will tell you, if you want to understand what poverty is, you will do cases involving people who are struggling to get health care for their children who make less than 138% of the federal poverty level. That is not a lot of money. Last year I was elevated to presiding judge. So now I supervise the panel of judges that do that work. Typical case would be where an addict leaves a baby, it's actually one of my cases, left a baby on the doorstep of her mother and at midnight, and then called her mother and said that her child was there. We had to decide whether that grandmother could be a foster parent. I had personally to decide that because she had been convicted of prostitution 20 years before. The county said it's enough. Now, as of January 1st, 2022, it's less of a problem. But before that, the counties were saying, you were convicted of a moral turpitude crime, couldn't be a foster parent. Those were difficult cases. I will tell you that on the teaching side, I've taught high school, taught a lot of high school students. I taught law. I taught how to plead lawsuits. I taught how to do discovery for lawsuits, how to try lawsuits to lawyers. And I will tell you, I was concerned when I saw that most of the lawyers in the class had 10 or more years of experience. That was an experience myself. I am running for judge because I believe in the system. I want to do more than I can do as an administrative law judge. I tell you, I enjoy mentoring judges. It is truly, teaching is one of the things I really enjoy. I love watching them become better judges. I do it every day. I'm going home today and rule on motions. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon because most of us were at the thing last night and we couldn't do it. So that's what happened. So I really enjoy teaching, but I want to do more. I want to do custody cases. I want to do divorce cases. I want to do other things which I can't do as an administrative law judge. So that's why I'm running for this seat. I am the only one who's tried thousands of cases. I'm sorry, microphone? That would be. Can you hear me? Sorry. I am the only one, better? Who has tried thousands of cases as a judge. I have written thousands of decisions as a judge. People say, well, I'll tell you what I'll do as a judge. I am now a judge. I will tell you that this is not a job that you can learn on day one. It takes experience. It takes time to learn how to be a good judge. I have 7 years of experience as a line judge. I have been a presiding judge since last year, and I teach other judges how to be good judges. That is what is required to be a good Superior Court judge, experience on the ground. I have experience in the breadth of life, I have experience as a judge, and I am the best candidate for this seat. And I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge McKay. Next is Keith Cogliano, Deputy District Attorney, like Judge McKay, also rated well qualified by the County Bar. Mr. Cogliano.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me okay? All right, being a small guy, I've always had to speak up. I've always had to be a fighter. So I'm going to tell you a story about what does differentiate me from the other candidates in this race. I'm the only candidate who tried a double murder special circumstances trial during the peak of campaign season. I put aside my personal want to become a judge, and I did my duty as a representative of the people of the state of California. I am a deputy district attorney, but I owe that duty to all of the people, including you, including the defendant, including the judge. I owe that duty to the people, and that's the duty to whom I will uphold if I'm successful in my run. What also differentiates me is something that happened in that particular jury trial, because I ran into the father of a man I had convicted for murder. I had sent his son away for life. And I have to tell you, I cringed a little bit when he said, "Cogliano," and he showed me his jury duty summons. I was actually in the courtroom getting ready to be sent out on that double murder trial. And there are rules, very specifically, that delineate whether an attorney can speak with a potential juror. But I directed him to the bailiff in the courtroom to whom he reported. I also told my colleague and the defense attorney on the case for which he appeared that he was the father of an individual that I had convicted. I later found out through the defense attorney as well as the prosecutor and the court reporter that he was impaneled on that jury, and what he said about me touched their hearts, and it touched my heart because he told the truth during voir dire, and he told them that he ran into the prosecutor who had convicted his son, but that I had done the job fairly, that I had treated him with respect, that every day during that month-long trial, I had done the right thing. That's what you want in a judge. You want a person who can actually cross lines that separate us, because that's what's important in due process. It's important that everybody who walks into that courtroom feel like they have had the opportunity to be heard, but more importantly, to actually have been heard. The reason why I have this is because of my background. Although I'm American, I was born to a Filipino mother and Japanese father. If you remember World War II, the two cultures don't get along. From the get-go, I was always the outsider. I was always that guy, the one that they tolerate. But what that taught me very early on in life is to develop my own opinion, to learn how to stand up for what's right. When I would complain to my parents that I was not being treated fairly, they took the hard road with me. They said, it doesn't matter how you're treated. You need to do what's right for yourself, and you need to make things fair. That's what I ultimately did when I served jury duty in the Compton courthouse. I served jury duty on a murder trial back in 2000, and what I really took from that was the experience of speaking with the other 11 jurors, all of whom came from different backgrounds from me, all of whom were there to do their civic duty. That's what you want in a judge, a person who's able to connect with people who are different from them, regardless of the circumstances. As a deputy district attorney, I've held the most difficult assignments in the hardcore gang division, serving neighborhoods that are underprivileged and underrepresented. I spent a large amount of my time in South Central Los Angeles, Watts, Compton, and Inglewood, where I actually connected with the community. The only way you can successfully prosecute these cases is by connecting with the people of the community. I've also held, Your Honor, I was designated as the DA for the LA County office to work with the Los Angeles DA's office. I have significant experience in opioid addiction cases. I was one of the only prosecutors who's ever convicted a medical doctor of murder for illegal opioid prescription. Remember me because I can reach out to you. I can connect with you, and I can connect with all of Los Angeles County. I'm not just a great candidate for judge, I'm reaching out to you and asking for your support and the support of your friends and family. If you like what I've said, please tell them about me and spread the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Koyana. Next, we have Georgia Huerta, also a deputy district attorney, also rated well qualified by the bar. Ms. Huerta. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Georgia Huerta. I am not a deputy district attorney currently. I left the office last year, but I was a deputy district attorney for over 30 years. I am a resident here in Whittier. I've lived here for over 30 years. My husband and with my two children, both of my boys are Eagle Scouts out of Troop 688 and Troop 688 and Troop 841. So Whittier is home. But home didn't start here in Whittier. Home started for me in South Central Los Angeles. I grew up on 104th and Broadway with my mother and my 6 siblings. My life story is a little bit different than the life stories of some of the candidates here today. Growing up on 104th and Broadway, I had an opportunity to see good, hardworking citizens trying to live a good life, but I also saw individuals who involved themselves in crime. I had the opportunity to see law enforcement officers who were good law enforcement officers who were there to protect and serve us and protect us from the individuals who were committing crimes. And we also saw law enforcement officers that, in my opinion, I did not feel treated everybody with dignity and respect. Because of that, I decided I wanted to be an attorney and a deputy district attorney because I wanted to help my community. And I felt the best way for me to help my community would be a deputy district attorney. Because if a deputy district attorney does what's right, what the mission of a deputy district attorney is, then we are serving every citizen in the county of Los Angeles. Not just some, not just part, but every single citizen. And that means the defendants, the victims, the witnesses, everyone. And in that job for over 30 years, I did that. I loved my job as a deputy district attorney. I'm not embarrassed to say that I worked there because I know I did the right thing. I know I brought certain core values with me. That's to be fair, to be impartial, to be honest, to listen to people. And because of my life experiences, they were different. I tried over 80 cases as a deputy district attorney, and I wasn't in a special unit. I was in that bread and butter unit. You know, when you're walking down the hallway and your supervisor says, "Hey, Georgia, we have a trial up there in Department 6. Here's the file. Get ready. Go do it." I couldn't say, "Oh, give me a day," or "give me someone to help me." No, based on my education, based on my experience, based on my skills, I took that file, I read it, I knew what to do, and I did it. That's what I'll do as a judge, based on my life experiences, based upon my education and my legal experience. I don't expect to be a judge and know every single thing that will come before me before I get there. I have to be prepared to handle it as it comes. And the only way that you can be prepared to handle it as it comes is that you have to have the experience. You have to have been put in that situation in order to do that. I will let you know that I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I went to UCLA as an undergraduate. I got my master's degree from USC. My mother, her educational level was the 9th grade, but my mother knew and understood the value of an education. And she instilled that in us. She instilled that in me. I knew I wanted to be an attorney. I ended up going to Western State College of Law in Fullerton, California, and I was fortunate enough to be hired by the district attorney's office where I could live out my calling. I am a true believer in community service. I know community service is valuable because people like you helped my parents, or at least my mother, in the community. So I was honored to be able to give back to the community, and that's what I have done. I work with my church. We have an outreach ministry where we feed the homeless, we provide clothing, we provide seminars, we provide all those things that sometimes people just overlook and don't think it's important, like helping a kid do their homework, those kinds of things that really brings a community together and make that community strong. That's what I bring to the table. I bring diversity, not just race, not just gender, but diversity of life. And that's what we need in order to make all our communities better, not just some, but all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. And the last candidate for office number 118 is Melissa Hammond, also a deputy district attorney for LA County, rated well qualified by the bar. Ms. Hammond, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me? No? Can you hear me now? All right, there we go. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. this morning, still this morning. Great to be here in Whittier. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Melissa Hammond. I'm running in seat 118. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I have 3 young children who are the loves of my life. I am a grandchild of Holocaust survivors who lost their entire families during the Holocaust and have instilled within me a love of family. So I believe my family is so important. I'm also a graduate of UCLA School of Law. I'm rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association. I've earned the endorsement of over 60 Superior Court judges and bench officers, as well as law enforcement, including the Los Angeles Police Protective League and other police officer associations. I'm the only woman in my seat who is currently in the Los Angeles Superior Court working there, and I'm the only woman in my seat who's currently in public service as a deputy district attorney. So why am I running for judge? I'm running for judge because I have wanted to be a judge since I was about 5 or 6 years old, when I first started going to the courts and jails of Los Angeles with my dad, who's a criminal defense attorney in Los Angeles. And instead of going to the playgrounds of LA, I would go with him to court, and I would go with him to jail. And I thought it was fascinating to watch the judges in action, and I knew that one day I wanted to be a judge myself. And so my entire life has been set for this time when I'm with all of you, here today, running for judge. And my interest in running for judge has evolved from a childhood interest to one where I want to do what's right for my community. I believe that I have the experience, the compassion, the knowledge, and the intelligence at this point in my life to be a good judge. And I want to give back to my community in LA where I've lived my whole life. So why me? There's all these qualified candidates in my seat. Why me? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. When I graduated UCLA School of Law, I went into civil litigation. Prior to graduating UCLA School of Law, I did administrative hearings before administrative law judges. I was also a public defender in LA, and I've been a deputy district attorney in LA for over 14 years. I've been working in the Superior Court of LA for almost 20 years, and I have the most well-rounded legal experience of anyone in my seat. And I believe that based on that legal experience, anywhere that the presiding judge wants to assign me, because as a judge you can be assigned anywhere in LA County, they want to assign me to civil, to criminal, pretty much anywhere, I can handle it because I have the experience needed. I haven't just been a DA or just been a public defender, I have been both. And it's very rare to have been both. I've done trials and hearings on both sides of the courtroom as well as in civil and administrative hearings. I've been rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association because of my temperament, my experience, my fairness, and I believe that I'm the best person for this particular seat. Now, you might also be asking, why me? And I'll tell you, the other reason is because I want to be a judge for the rest of my career and the rest of my life. Electing a judge is different than electing a council person or a mayor. It's not just a one term or 2 term and done type of thing. Electing a judge is generally electing a judge for the rest of their careers. And I want to be a judge for the next 20 plus years or more. And I want to be the best judge that I could possibly be. I want to spend the rest of my career learning how to be the best judge I could possibly be. And that's another reason why you should pick me. I also want to work with children because I have 3 of my own, and I believe that that you can really make an impact in children's lives. Youth is where it all begins. You see it in the system. You see kids who have parents who have been involved with crimes, and the kids follow in their parents' footsteps. And it is so important to get to the kids early on. It is so important to make sure they have the right role models and the right teachers, the right counselors. So that's why I would love to be in dependency court or juvenile court. So I would like to thank you for listening to me today. I know it's been a lot of speeches that you've heard, and and I would really love to have your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Now we are going to turn to the last, not least, but because they're all equal, number 151, Judicial Office 151. We have 4 candidates for that position. I will say I really appreciate the fact that this audience has stayed around. We're almost at question time. We're on to the last judicial office of the 9. And so let's get on with it, and then we'll have question time. But we're going to go a little bit, somewhat past noon, because we want to make sure the audience has an opportunity to put questions to the candidates. So, office number 151, the first candidate I have is Thomas Allison, an attorney/legal professor, rated qualified by the county bar. Professor Allison, welcome.
Thank you, Judge Bonner. Thank you to the powerhouses, Charles and Martha. Yes, I know I said powerhouses. I know them to be phenomenal people. Want to recognize my beautiful wife in the back of the room, my beautiful daughter who is 6 going on 16, and my wonderful son who is 3 going on 23. The foundations of justice are found in a fair, impartial, and independent court. A court that maintains the dignity of the people and the integrity of the system. I am the best qualified candidate for Office 151 for 4 reasons. First, my life experience. Second, my diverse legal experience. Third, my legal knowledge. And fourth, my community service. When it comes to my life experience, I was born in South Central Los Angeles in Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital to a single mother in poverty. I have early experiences with homelessness, and I have experienced homelessness even as an adult. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I have personal experience with the burdens that weigh on the people of Los Angeles County every single day. And it is that life experience that allows me to be empathetic and compassionate to people when they are in the most troubling times of their lives. Despite my experiences, I was taught by my mother to leave my mark, and what that meant was to use whatever influence I had to make as big an impact as I could in any way that I can. That resulted in me being an honor roll student. It resulted in me being a deacon, licensed and ordained at the age of 14, the youngest in my church's history, and a remarkable history of service. When it comes to my diverse legal experience, I have experience in family, criminal, civil, and landlord-tenant. I've handled jury trials for both landlords and tenants. I have prosecuted a father on 95 counts of contempt because it was the only way to allow my client to have access to her children. I've handled multi-million-dollar divorces, and I've represented people who were facing life in this incarceration system. I am licensed to practice law in California, Nevada, New York, Washington, and Washington, D.C. The diversity of that experience positions me as the best candidate to be able to take on any judicial assignment I might receive from day one. I serve as a volunteer temporary judge, which means I'm the only one in our seat who has actually made decisions wearing a robe. When it comes to my legal knowledge, I am a legal professor. I've taught 61 courses in or around the law. I have coached mock trial, moot court, and debate teams. And that allows me to not only be able to understand the law, but to be able to communicate complicated legal decisions to people with absolutely no legal background or experience themselves. I have studied public administration on a master's and doctoral level. What that entitles me to do is to be able to understand not only the people in front of me from a legal perspective, I also have understanding of the root causes of the issues that bring people before the court, which means I am better situated to make good decisions for the betterment of all, including the community. When it comes to my community service, I started a nonprofit organization that has put on more than 80 free legal clinics to the public because I believe it is important that all people have access to law and justice. I've put on more than 100 community education programs and engagement programs, including a truth and reconciliation program that included 8 police agencies so that the community can have discussion and dialogue with the people who were patrolling their streets and felt safe. I've served on 13 different boards of local, regional, and national nonprofit organizations, which allows me to not only understand the people of LA County, but the issues that the people of LA County face. I am endorsed by Union 7, SEIU 721, which is the union that represents court staff. And this was after they heard from all of the candidates in our seat and ultimately decided to choose me for endorsement. I am endorsed also by the local, LA County Federation of Labor, 800,000 members. More than 55 attorneys have endorsed me, more than 25 elected officials have endorsed me, and several community leaders. I believe that the community is what matters most, and as a judge, I do and I will bring the community with me into the courtroom to ensure we are making balanced decisions that will result in public safety, equity, as well as that community representation, connection, and trust. And it's for these reasons I am the best candidate for Office 151. Look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Next we have Karen Braco, rated qualified by the bar, and for some reason I don't see any those 3 words as to what you have been doing in the past, but welcome.
Good morning, or should I say good afternoon. It's about this time I wish I was running for seat number 3, because 151, you're all getting ready to, we're all tired of sitting. I'll try to be brief. First of all, I was born and raised in the harbor area of Los Angeles County. I became an attorney 30 years ago. I've been a deputy district attorney for the last 25 years. And in those 25 years, I've handled numerous cases. I've tried over 100 cases, felony trials to verdict, and well over 35 homicide trials to verdict. I currently am assigned to the Special Trials Unit in Long Beach, where my caseload is approximately 25 homicide cases. In my job every day, I deal with families of victims who've suffered unimaginable loss. Their mothers who've lost sons or daughters, their children who've lost their parents. I direct them to services. I help them through the system to understand what's going to happen throughout the process. Because a homicide trial can take up to, my last case, 6 years to get to trial. And it can be frustrating for the victims, especially when we lost 2 of those years to the pandemic and the courts being shut down. In the last 2 months, I've tried 3 murder cases to verdict. I also have the unique experience of handling misdemeanor cases in the city of Avalon, over on Catalina Island. And it's a unique experience because you're on an island. Typically when we issue restraining orders for people, it's stay 100 yards away. On an island that's a couple square miles, we issue restraining orders, stay 15 yards away. There's a tremendous drug and mental health problem over on the island, in addition to the nuisance crimes that some of the tourists commit. And what we do over there is work with people. The goal is to get the behavior to stop and not see the same people over and over again and reinforce the problems on the island. I work with the defense and the judge to come up with creative solutions. Again, because you're on an island, there aren't a lot of services. We've, in the past 3 years, gotten Tarzana Treatment Program onto the island so that they can treat the residents for drug and mental health issues. It's difficult for them to come off the island because a round trip is about $100, and you're dealing with some people who work 3 and 4 jobs just to be able to survive on a daily basis. So we come up with unique solutions to help people so we don't see them on a recurring basis. I grew up with a special needs brother and spent my childhood going to doctor's appointments and therapy appointments with my parents. At a young age, I learned empathy. I learned compassion. In fact, oftentimes in my job, I see people with special needs who are either victims, they're victimized because they're different, or that are defendants who are led into the system by those who see them as pawns because they're easily agreeable. And those are the cases that break my heart. And we try to come up with unique solutions to make sure that everybody is made whole. I evaluate cases on a daily basis. In my position as the Special Trials Deputy, cases are brought to me for filing. I have to look at it from both sides, from a defense attorney perspective and from a prosecution perspective before we even put pen to paper. When I evaluate a case, you look at, it was a crime committed. Was this person responsible for the crime? You also have to look at constitutional violations. And those are things that we consider every day in making decisions on cases. So I'm uniquely qualified on day one to come in and make decisions on cases because that's what I do on a daily basis. As a judge, I will treat everyone with dignity and respect. Give everyone the opportunity to be heard and be transparent about my decisions because one of the problems with the distrust in the criminal justice system. And I think transparency with judges will bring that trust back to the justice system. I'm endorsed by my colleagues in the District Attorney's Union. I am endorsed by many judges in Los Angeles County, and I'm endorsed by police unions. I believe I am the most qualified candidate because of my 30 years experience as an attorney, and I'm asking for your vote this June. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bracco. Next, we have Patrick Hare, who is listed as on the ballot as a deputy public defender and rated well qualified by the county bar. Mr. Hare.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Hare. I'm the product of public schools, the first in my family to graduate from college, and I am a public defender. My father, Earl, is an Air Force veteran and was a union machinist, and my mother, Joyce, is a homemaker. And I am the product of that family in that environment, and I learned from my parents the virtues of hard work. They instilled in me a sense of the golden rule, and they gave me a heart for the least vulnerable in our community. They also taught me about accountability and responsibility, as well as the values of repentance and providing opportunities for redemption. So those values are what led me to become a public defender over 32 years ago, and it's those same values that have led to my calling as a Los Angeles County Superior Court. Along the way, I've come to realize more than ever that justice matters. And when I say justice, I mean the sort of justice that restores our communities to wholeness. For victims of crime, absolutely, but also for people accused of crimes as well. I've worked in courthouses all over Los Angeles County and Orange County as well, and I've come to the conviction that justice in Inglewood shouldn't look different than justice in Brentwood. And because justice matters, judges matters. I believe there are three qualities that you should look for when you go to the ballot box to vote for a judge. One, the depth of legal experience. Secondly, a deep awareness of the people and the communities that the judge and the court serve. And thirdly, deep respect from the people in those communities. Let me talk briefly about my legal experience. I'm a graduate of Boston University. As I indicated, I have over 32 years of experience as an attorney, more than any other candidate in my race. I have handled civil as well as criminal cases. I've tried over 100 cases. I've done dependency law. I've done conservatorships in the mental health court. I've done over 100 felony trials ranging from, well, misdemeanors to felonies ranging from trespassing all the way to special circumstance murder cases. Much of my career, though, has been in what are called the collaborative courts. Now, we tend to think of justice and the justice system as an adversarial system, but recently there has been a movement to what is called collaborative justice, where all the parties are working together, the district attorney or the city attorney with the defense attorneys, with the Department of Health, with the probation department, with the Sheriff's Department, so that we end the cycle, the revolving door that so many people have talked about, and we work towards restorative justice for everyone involved in the process. Outside of my legal experience, I want to talk about the community experience that I have as well. I spent over a decade on the board of directors of a community nonprofit in a primarily immigrant, poverty-stricken community in East Hollywood. And while on the board of directors, I actually lived in the neighborhood. We ran tutoring programs for the children, and I'll never forget the day that we found out that Michael, one of the young men that we tutored, had been the victim of a drive-by shooting. And the following week, I marched together with the neighbors in a candlelight vigil praying for the end to the violence. So I know on a first-hand basis the effect that crime has on our communities. After that, I ran a community gospel choir with the Reverend Alexander Hamilton for over a decade, and using the medium of gospel music, we took the message of systemic injustice and racial reconciliation to the communities. Currently, I work at a shelter for those that are too vulnerable for traditional shelters. With respect to the respect of the community, I'm the only candidate in my race rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar, but I have diverse endorsements as well. I've been endorsed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. I've been endorsed by the California Latino Judges Association, Luis Rodriguez, the president of the California State Bar, Mia Yamamoto, the past president of the Japanese American Bar, and on it goes. I've seen firsthand as a public defender, as a citizen, the effect that crime, mental illness, addiction, and treatment can have in our community. And I believe with that extensive background and experience and the respect I have for members of the community, that I will be an excellent candidate for the Superior Court, and I look forward to earning your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. And our last candidate, if he is here, is Richard Quiones. Not here. I guess Mr. Hare was our last closing opening statement. All right, here's the fun part. For the fun part of question time, we have an announcement.
Only for those of you that might want to walk out, this forum was taped by Mount SAC, and it will be loaded onto YouTube. The way to search for it is, I guess, punch your name in and say Judicial Forum, because we weren't told where it's going to be. But you can see yourself and judge for yourself who you're going to vote for.
All right, so you're going to be on YouTube at some point. We'll let you know. In any event, okay, this is the fun part. It's question time. So who wants to start us off here with a question? Let me just, could you come up to the lectern? And while you're doing that, let me just put one question to Mr. Handler, because he's running against a sitting judge who's not here, Judge Gilpin. And I was on the Judicial Performance Commission of the state of California. I was the chair of it at one time, and there's a woman who was the executive director, Victoria Henley, and she said judicial elections are such a random way to select or deselect judges. It's like knife tossing blindfolded. And it's a bit like that, but you're running against Mr. Handler, a sitting judge who is pretty well respected from everything I know. And so the presumption would be that a sitting judge who's doing a reasonably good job should stay in office. And so tell us why we should toss Judge Gelfand out. You can do it there.
I got into this race late. member of the Public Defenders Union, and I was on the political committee involved with. Yes. To cut to the chase, I used in a public forum that I might consider running against a sitting judge, based on my belief that judges should do their best to honestly and earnestly follow new changes in legislation that have been enacted to try to bring more collaborative justice to the system and rehabilitate those who can be rehabilitated. And I wasn't even that serious about it, but I started getting calls from my colleagues who worked in the San Fernando court who had, in a game of telephone, heard that I had definitely decided to run against a sitting judge. And they were saying, have you considered running against David Gelfand? And I hadn't, but I did some investigation, and he is the site judge in San Fernando. And what I learned was that in addition to defense counsel generally perceiving that he treated both them and their clients poorly and basically put politely, tried to push the old school prosecutorial agenda within his court, he was single-handedly blocking efforts to increase opportunities for both collaborative justice opportunities in his court, as well as resisting the transfer of cases from the San Fernando court to other courthouses where they did have special collaborative justice courts set up. And so that was why I chose to run against him.
Thank you, Mr. Handler. Unfortunately, Judge Gelfand is not here to defend himself, but nonetheless, appreciate your answering that question. Now we have, I see a long line of questions here. Let's start. To the extent you can address it to a specific person, that's great, because we have so many people up here.
Is for everybody.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Could
just state your name and then question.
My name is Asefe. I was born in Iran, Islamic country, and as a child I went through fascism and discrimination, being a female, being forced to cover my body. Past 2 years, we went through mandate discrimination, harassment. For some of us, I was not able to shop, go grocery shopping. I was refused medical service.
By the way,
my question is,
yeah, we need a question.
My question is, which one of you think that was wrong to do, refusing us service because we don't want to follow the nonsense mask mandate?
Okay, the refusal. Well, that's a really kind of politically
it was
loaded
nothing
question,
but control
and I'm wondering.
and nonsense.
I'm wondering. Do I see a hand raised that might want to respond to that one? There we go, Mr. Handler again. Anyone else here? No, okay, Mr. Handler, you got it.
I don't mean to offend you, but I worked at the criminal courts building during the pandemic at a time when, although inside the courtroom there were mask mandates, there was no one enforcing the mask mandates in the very crowded hallways. There was no one making people in jail wear masks. And consequently, myself and many of my colleagues got COVID, and several of them passed away, interpreters and lawyers. So I apologize if that intrusion on your personal liberty has bothered you so much, but I personally believe that the court should have done much more to enforce these mask mandates in public spaces.
Well, there you have it. Okay, so let's. No debate here. I need the next question. Next question.
So all of you support fascism, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Nair Kankanian. My question is that being so new and not really familiar with this whole system, what do these numbers indicate? Are these districts, the numbers of the offices? How do I know which one is the judge of my district?
Could you rephrase that just a little bit? I just didn't quite get the gist of it.
The question is, what do the numbers mean with respect to your offices?
Yes. Oh.
The numbers are simply categories on a ballot. They don't mean it's going to go anywhere. Take for instance, the presiding judge decides where to send each judge who is elected to the office. The number does not mean anything with
Yeah, it's an organizing technique so people can run for a particular judicial office. Good question, though, because very few people know that. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Vicki Abramson from Valencia, California. I just have a question. I wondered, it's for everyone, but just a show of hands would be good enough for me. The question is, and it's important to me, do any of you daily read the Bible and allow it to influence your decisions? Would you raise your hand if that suits you? Do you read your Bible and does it influence you?
That gets a little
It's a little personal, but I'm asking anyway.
Opinion, but as to whether, but the question is, you know, do any of you read the Bible and what?
And does it influence your decisions?
It doesn't influence your decision. Well, let me just say, it shouldn't influence a decision as a judge. I'm sorry, man. Religion should not influence a judicial decision. Law, as interpreted by the courts, influences judicial decisions. I don't know. I'm just not putting that question to the candidates. I don't think it's a fair question. And I don't think it's a relevant question, particularly.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize to you, but let me ask just is there anybody here that wants to address the question of whether or not they read the Bible and it influences their decision? If somebody affirmatively wants to step forward, I will. Pardon? You do swear on the Bible. I just, anyway, anybody want, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I was really trying to take the candidates off the spot here, and I'll take the criticism for that. But we do have someone. Here we go.
Hi, Ms. Abramson. Thank you for that question. So, to answer your question, I serve on the governing board of my church, so that background informs sort of who I am as a human being, right? I'm a faithful member of my church, but at the same time, the Constitution does require a separation between church and state. So I would say it informs who I am as a person, but as a judge, I would follow the Constitution.
That was a good answer. We have the next question. Yes.
Hi, I'll be quick. My name is Natasha Serrano, and I'm a candidate for State Assembly for the 56th District. And my question is, I'm a pro-life advocate. With the hearing of the new bill that they're trying to pass to legalize infanticide here in California, AB 2223, which it would state that a person will not be subject to civil or criminal liability or penalty based on their actions with respect to their pregnancy, stillbirth or abortion, and perinatal death, which is also described as 28 days after birth. And it will also fine law enforcement that will prosecute these people. I just want to know, where do you stand on this?
So the question is, just in a nutshell, what's the question?
Yeah, just like, what is their stand on this bill that they're trying to pass about not prosecuting people that are the cause of the related of a newborn baby 28 days after?
Translate for me, Judge.
Judges should not have a position on legislation that is proposed. Judges follow the law when it passes. That's the issue. They should not have to tell you what they think about legislation that may be in the legislature.
So they may have to decide.
Okay,
that
so if it's legal that a
judicial
baby
candidates.
can be murdered 28 days after the baby's born, so a judge will be okay with not prosecuting that person? No, I understand. But they're serving the community, and I just want to know their personal opinion.
She's asking to comment, I think, on some pending legislation that I'm not aware of, by the way. I don't know if any of you are. Pardon?
So no answer?
AB 2223. It does seem to me that you shouldn't be taking positions on potential legislation. And I feel like I'm the umpire or the bad marshal here or something. But you do raise an interesting point, and let me spin off of it a little bit, because I really was hoping somebody would put this question to a couple of the candidates have suggested that, and I'm going to put this question directly, I think, to Ms. Lashley Haynes. I mean, really, part of, I think your argument was that you want to be a judge because you want to reform the criminal justice system. I'm probably misstating it a little bit, but you were talking about reform. And I think Judge True just indicated that, you know, judges are supposed to follow the law. And I'm wondering if you're interested in reform of the criminal justice system, why you're not running for the legislature as opposed to a judicial office. Could I ask you to respond to that? Mr. Hanley kind of made the same argument.
Sure, thank you so much. So part of reform comes from who's on the bench and how they're interpreting the laws and what sentences, when they have discretion, they are imposing. And what I'm referring to when I quoted the Koch brothers initiative and a lot of people who believe that we need to be doing better with our judicial system. And that's what it's about, is let's move us towards progress in LA County. And we have approved programs that put people into treatment, that give people mental health treatment. Because you know what, somebody who's medicated and then can be employed and have a job rather than be sitting in jail is more fiscally responsible and is gonna make our communities much safer. And that's what I'm referring to.
Appreciate getting a response to that. So let's see, next question. Sir.
Oh, it's working.
There we
now.
go.
Okay.
I think it's on.
Yeah, press this. Yeah, it's working now. Hi, everybody. My name is Ben. I happen to live in Whittier, and I was hoping for a little more, I guess we'll just say spine from you guys, because it's kind of disappointing if you guys are actually, you know, ruling on people in the community. I mean, we expect you guys to have strength and conviction in that ruling and not be timid, just being quiet and letting the moderator, you know, kind of defend you.
What's your
So
question?
I'll get to my question. Actually got a lot, but I'll just do this one. Will you have the fortitude to accept and actually hear cases of religious and medical discrimination of people who could not wear a mask or take a flawed experimental vaccine injection that occurred over the past 3 years?
You know,
I'll repeat that question.
No, yeah,
Will any of you
because I
talk about,
I
will you?
cannot hear the question.
All right, well, I'm speaking pretty loud, okay. All right, I'll step back from the mic a bit. Okay, so will any of you have the fortitude to accept and actually hear cases of religious and medical discrimination of people who could not wear a mask or take a flawed experimental vaccine injection that occurred over the past 3 years?
Okay, so it's the mask question.
And experimental injection.
And the what?
The vaccine that they told us would work.
And mandatory vaccine?
Yes. Will the judges, you candidates, actually accept those cases instead of just throw them out based on standing or any other procedural grounds? Will you guys actually hear the cases? Because I'm not very schooled like any of you, but I know all this stuff. Have it all on my phone.
All right, we got the question. I want to be very careful with our judicial candidates in terms of prejudging any case that might come before you. But I saw a hand raised. Well, no, this one, the professor first.
Yeah. So all of us are bound by canons of judicial ethics, and the purpose of those ethics is to give the public confidence that when you come into a courtroom, we're going to take every case before us as it is and make independent, impartial decisions. We can't make opinions or give statements on pending legislation or legislation that is not before us or might be before us, because that breaks the public's confidence in the ability to have independent and impartial decisions made in each case. It's not that we don't want to hear from you, it's not that we don't want to respond or engage in communication with you, but we are bound legally by ethical rules that prevent us from commenting on these things. So just understand that we're taking ethical positions, and I think that's an indication that we're probably going to be well served on the bench because we can follow the rules.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. McCurdy, if you wanted to add something to that?
Just briefly, the law isn't a buffet. We don't get to pick which ones we like and which ones we don't like. So when you say take a case, of course, any judge will hear a case in front of his or her courtroom, right? Judges don't get to pick, oh, I want that one or that one or that one. A case will land in your courtroom, it's assigned to you, and he or she will listen to the arguments, evaluate the evidence. But if there's no standing under the law, there's no standing. Now, each case is different. I can't comment on specific facts. But so taking a case is different than making a ruling. So, of course, all of us would take a case if it's assigned to your courtroom. But the question is what the evidence shows. So, thanks.
I appreciate those answers. I appreciate all those answers that you guys were willing to have the courage to voice. But judges do have something called, what is it, judicial purview or some sort of discretion. It's something like that. Okay.
All right.
I'm not the smartest guy.
But
you guys do have the choice where you throw a case out or not.
Yeah.
So.
They don't have a choice as to which case gets assigned to them, though. I can tell you that. Okay. So next question, sir. Oh, he's deferring. Or, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Lori Harold. I've been a practicing attorney for over 35 years. President of Local Bar Association. Know Judge Troy here very well. He's kind enough to sometimes go to our Bar Association meetings. And I'd like to know if any of you participate in local bar associations. It's near and dear to my heart because we support the local attorneys in our neighborhoods and community work and outreach as well. And I'd like to know if any of you were a judge of the year with any of the local bar associations or active in the local bar associations. Thank you.
What was there? I didn't get a question, but okay, sir. Was there a question?
Are any of you active in local bar associations?
Okay.
Or members of local bar associations or even a judge of the year of a local bar association?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me just ask for a raise of hands. How many of you are active in a bar association, local or otherwise? Okay, so many are, but not everybody. And of course, I guess if you're on the bench, you shouldn't be at oh, did you want to answer that question already?
Well, I was way back when I wasn't elected. I was honored to be Judge of the Year of the Eastern Bar Association. So I appreciate the fact that I was honored in that regard at one point in time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. Yes, sir.
I am a member, resident, descendant of the community. My name is Isaiah L. Leon Savage. And my question is for everyone, so you can answer it or not. I understand that you're a candidate, so there's nothing that you can actually change right now. But my question is, what is your stance on parole 835Bs into the communities with high concentration of children? Do you consider this child endangerment, and what is your remedy for this issue?
And you're referring to a legislation involving parole?
835B is a child predator, sir.
Oh, child predator?
Yeah, we have 1,996 here.
Okay.
Third largest school district in Southern California.
Again, asking for, I guess, pending legislation, and I don't want you to answer that question directly, but maybe there's a...
No, this is not legislation, sir. These are people that have committed crimes against children.
Okay.
They are being paroled in areas where there are high concentrations.
Oh, I see, okay.
This is not dealing with 835.
So what would be the question? Let's say I'm running for judge. What question do you want to ask me?
I'll ask it again. What's your stance on child predators living in a community highly concentrated with children? Do you consider this child endangerment?
Okay.
And what is your remedy for this issue?
Okay, again, I got it. And that's one of those questions again, because if whoever is elected, and some people are here today are going to be elected to the LA County Superior Court, and I just think that is there anybody who wants to? Okay, Judge, thank you. Bless your heart.
I'm going to try to answer this in I'm going to try and answer this in plain English because it's going to be hard. Okay. There are rules for judges. There are ethical rules for us as judges that we have to follow. We are restricted from commenting on cases that are pending or impending, which means that might come before us. And I see this gentleman turning away.
No, ma'am, I'm not turning away.
Okay. So because there is that restriction, judges have to remain fair and impartial at all times, both publicly and privately. My family says, Mom, you can talk about it. And I say, no, I can't. Okay?
I'm not running for office. I can tell you, I certainly don't want sexual predators back out on the street. But on the other hand, there's a set of laws that set up the possibility of parole, that somebody may have been rehabilitated. The legislature set up those laws. Got a problem with those laws?
No,
Go to the legislature.
I'm asking their opinion on it, their
Well,
perspective.
but
I'm not asking them like to go and start with signs. I'm just asking your perspective. Where do you see it at?
We're all
This is
very
a
concerned
legitimate
about.
question.
We're all very concerned about child endangerment from sexual predators. Everybody up here, I can speak for everyone. Thank you. All right, next question, sir.
Oh, that was the answer?
Yes. We'll debate that later. Stick around. We'll talk. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name's Glenn Shepard, La Habra Heights, and my question is dealing with the philosophy of qualified immunity for police officers. How do you side on this issue? Do you feel that qualified immunity does more good than harm when it comes to police interaction with the community?
All right, you know, that's a great question. It's one I've given a lot of thought to myself because I'm on the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission dealing with excessive force issues or the use of excessive force as to whether or not there should be qualified immunity. And that's been subject to debate actually since the murder of George Floyd. Particularly, it's become more debatable how much protection a police officer should have. But again, it's, you know, I can see now why the media covers political elections because these are all, you know, great questions for people that could pass or amend laws, but judges have to follow the law. I don't know. I'm almost, since you're kind of the last questioner, I'm gonna pause that question just for a moment before I ask the panel of candidates what they would like to do, because I actually I wanted to do what I'm going to call the second to last question, and that was to I want to make sure I get his name correctly here. Oh my gosh, I see him down there. Is it you, sir, at the end? Just give me your name again. Yeah, Troy Slayton. Slayton, right? Yeah. 2 questions. One's relevant, one's not. Relevant question is, you say you're an administrative law judge. What area do you administer the law in? And secondly, you also said you were a child actor. This is the irrelevant question. Are there any child acting shows that you were in that any of us might recognize? Oh, wait. The mic.
Thank you, Judge. I'm an administrative law judge, currently assigned to the California Department of Industrial Relations. I work out of the State Building in Van Nuys, California. So that's the answer to the first part of the question. Second question that nobody cares about. I was on some shows in the 80s and 90s, like Cagney and Lacey. I played Michael Lacey, one of the kids. A bunch of other shows that people may or may not have watched in the 80s and 90s, like Who's the Boss, Different Strokes, The Wonder Years, Roseanne, Murphy Brown, Step by Step, Greatest American Hero, stuff like that. But thank you. I'm happy to talk about that after. Here you go, Judge. This one.
Go. Yeah, I said I now accuse myself of asking an irrelevant question, but there's a question about qualified immunity, and it's getting close to the last question. I'm wondering, I don't know how to answer it. It's getting into what's the right balance in terms of literally actions that are filed in the federal court under 1983, which is the Civil Rights Act. Let me talk, by the way, let me talk to you afterwards. I have some thoughts on it. Okay. You've had a question. I need to go. Everybody gets
Real
a
quick
chance.
question.
No, wait,
Which
wait,
OU
no, wait, sir.
will support the
order.
recall of George Gascon?
Ma'am,
publicly, right?
Point of
Raise their
order.
hands.
Point of order. Everybody, I want to make sure everybody who has a question gets at least one question in, and you have a question or.
I just asked my question. Which you guys will support the recall of George Gascon? That's it. A lot of you are ADAs and deputy.
You want to support the recall of George Gascon?
Yes.
Support to the recall.
Yes. That's my question.
I see some in the audience.
Show of hands. Anybody?
I'm gonna sustain my own objection to the question. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. I want to hear the next question here.
Will any of you raise your hands in support of recalling George Gascon, please?
No, that's not an appropriate question to judicial candidates. Does anybody want to? Oh, there. Okay, Ms. Lyons. All right, all right. Here you go.
I see that there's a lot of frustration and you feel like we're not answering your questions. And so I think it's important for you to understand the distinction between a judicial candidate and someone that is running for a position that makes laws, such as the legislature or someone who's running for Congress. Because the judiciary is supposed to be independent, okay, we cannot comment on other candidates that are non-judicial candidates. We cannot comment on legislation that is pending. We cannot comment on, even if it's not pending legislation, how we might rule on a case that, whether it is before us or not, because it may come before us, because it compromises the integrity of the judiciary. If I were to say to you, I am pro this or anti this, then as a judge, I have now disqualified myself from being able to hear that case. The judiciary has to be independent, and that's why we cannot, this is not about us being, what's the word, sort of smug or trying to disregard your questions. It's literally that as judges, we cannot answer the question under the canon of ethics. We would be in violation of ethics to answer those specific questions. I don't want you to walk out of here feeling like you have a bunch of candidates that have no backbone, don't know how to make a decision. We do know how to make decisions when the time is right, in alignment with the law as it is at the time that we're making the decision. We just cannot comment because of the judicial canon of ethics. And I really hope that you understand that this is not us skirting issues. It's because we cannot comment on issues.
With all due respect, then why are we all here? Everybody took their time. You guys took your time to come here and talk about why we should elect you. With all due respect, then why are we all here?
I have time maybe for one more question. I see people are lined up here. If you can just get right to the question here, and we'll try to get an answer.
I'll try. I think the frustration that you're talking about is trying to get an answer. Most of you are attorneys, deputy attorneys, you worked in the courts for a long time. And I think the question I want to pose is, are you going to, do you know, and are you going to uphold the laws as they are written? That is, I think, the most important question. Not specific laws, but to actually stand behind the laws and not take direction to ignore it.
Okay. Is there anybody, no, we have a questioner here, and somebody raised their hand, and basically, a judge is expected to follow the law, And I hope everybody up here understands that. But let's hear from one of our candidates.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm going to say. As a judge and as judicial candidates that are already bound by the judicial ethics, all of us are standing before you today, and me, myself, speaking to you right now, I will speak for myself. I will follow the laws that are set down. We are here to tell you about our experience and our expertise and our backgrounds that tell you who we are as a person. The law that is made by the legislature and by the people that vote on the motions that come onto the ballot, on the bills, that is what we as judges have to follow. I will follow the law, regardless of my personal opinion, because that is what a judge's job is to be impartial and to be educated on the law and to do your very best to uphold that, because that is how our society is built. We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the judicial branch. Where the law allows discretion, I will be as fair as I can as to the individual case. And every case that comes in front of a judge has to be assessed as to the parties in that case, whether it's civil or family court or criminal court, whatever the case may be. But each case deserves an individualized assessment and not a blanket opinion or a blanket background. And that is why we can't say more than that. But I, as a candidate, am happy to stand in front of you and say that I will follow the law that is voted on by the people, that is put forth by the people who are in the legislature, that were voted in by the people. And that is what we are, as judges, charged to do. So we will follow the law that the people put into effect, either through their representatives or through the ballot box.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Perry.
Yeah.
Standing up.
Next, we might have time. I know we're running out of case here. Or
This
something,
one's an
but-
easy one.
Yeah.
I promise.
Let me. By the way, let me just say, I think it's Canon 1 of the Rules of Judicial Ethics say that a judge, particularly a judge of the trial court, Superior Court, is expected and required to follow the law, as handed down by the Constitution, legislation, higher courts like the Supreme Court, and courts of appeals. Now, sir, sorry, your question.
I was just curious, what are the salaries for these judgeships?
What's the salary? Who knows the salary? Maybe that will be important to the one who raises their hand, but does anybody know the salary of a Superior Court judge? Okay, Judge Drew says $217,000 annually. So it's a nice job. It's a fairly well-paying job, although, you know, if you're in private practice of law, you can make a lot more. But these are dedicated public servants here. But it's $217,000. All right. Good. Short question, short answer. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, judges, or potential judges, for being here today. This is my first time being here. I'm from the Santa Clarita Valley, and I had a question regarding the news about the Supreme Court and the decision being leaked to the public, and how their addresses were leaked as well. And I wanted to find out, because ethically, I wanted to know, the public trusting the clerks in the Supreme Court to keep all this information private, what are the repercussions for anyone that did this horrible thing of leaking information before the decision was actually done by the Supreme Court? If anybody could answer that.
That's a good question, and since I was a law clerk to a federal judge, I will tell you what the first repercussion is. If you leak information about a decision before it's decided, you're fired. That's number one. Number two, you can potentially be disbarred because all of the law clerks. And they should be, by the way, in my opinion. Fired, disbarred.
Thank you.
Now, whether there's a possibility of criminal prosecution's another question. Talk to me after the program's over.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much for being
This
here.
is it. This is the last question. All right. Benito.
I'd
Go.
like to say thank you for being here. It's a great opportunity for the community to hear from you, because you guys are supposed to be impartial, and so you're not going to be out there. Actually, I heard that you guys have websites, so I'm going to be looking for you. So I appreciate you being here. I have a question. How does changing the perspective of justice look like, and what does reforming the justice look like to any of you.
Could you just repeat that question for me, Judge Drew?
How is justice reformed? I think it's
Justice reform, and also the changing the perspective of justice.
The change.
Abby Barron had mentioned.
Okay, it's a tough question to end on, but I've got a volunteer here. I'm taking it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Judge.
So I want to talk about the perception of justice. Justice is really based on your feelings, whether or not you were able to access a fair, impartial decision that was based on the law. One of the things that I think is helpful for the perception of justice is to have judicial officers who are able to communicate with people in terms and language that they understand. That way, as they're going through their legal process, they're active participants in that process, what I call the justice journey, as opposed to bystanders in that process. And so when we talk about the perception of justice, there are different sorts of justice. There's substantive justice that deal with the outcome, and then there's procedural justice that allows you to feel that justice is done in the course of your getting to that outcome. And so, in my opinion, the perception of justice from the judicial bench has a lot to do with how we treat the people in front of us, how we communicate with the people in front of us, and how we empathize with the stress that they're under in that particular scenario, and whether or not we're taking that into consideration in how we are handling them in our courtrooms.
Ms. Ransom, you have there's a mic right next to you, excuse me.
Thank you. I think I said earlier that we need to look at our communities. We need to look at why people are constantly in the system. And if there's something that is bringing them in, whether it be mental illness, drug addiction, poverty, we need to look at that and not put people just straight to prison. But if you look at the person and look at their needs, it might help with recidivism. And that's why I said earlier I like to reach children at a younger age before they get into the system. And I think for reform, we need a fresh look at society and what society goes through and be in tune with the community. And that's why I get involved myself with the community programs, because once a person gets into the system, they want to be respected, heard, felt like they were treated fairly, and in order to do that, we need to be in touch with the community, not just sitting at our desks prosecuting cases, but actually getting out and seeing what the needs are. Like I said, I work in the mental health court, so I see daily different areas of that court, and I think once we we realize that people are different, very diverse. We don't issue blanket policies, but we deal with cases on an individual basis. We take that person as they come in, and we try to see what we can do aside from sending them to prison. Some cases are warranting of prison. I'm not saying that there are the extreme cases, there are the middle cases, there are the minor cases, but to treat each one individually and with respect, I think they gain a lot of respect. There are a lot of eyes on the criminal justice system right now, and it's not very positive. But I think we need newer people on the bench that can address those issues and are more in tune with the community. And I think at that way we can start to reform what people look as injustice or problems in the community system.
Thank you for that. Now let's wrap things up. We're gonna wrap things up. Oh, we're not going to wrap things up. I'm giving you 30 seconds on this one. Go ahead.
I heard you say my name. And I know that when I spoke, when we started 2.5 hours ago, one of the things I said was when people come into a courtroom, you're molding their perception of the justice system. Is that why you mentioned my name? So what I meant by that is a lot of people don't come to court multiple times. At least that's the goal, right? So when they come to court and they interact with the judge, or whether they're on prosecution side or defense side, or it's a civil case or it's a family court case, whatever, your perception of how our justice system works in a courtroom is molded by how that judge runs the courtroom. And it has been a mark of my career to work with everybody in a very cohesive way to make sure that justice is meted out in the cases that I have handled. And if you go to my website that you now know exists, you will see statements from judges and defense attorneys and DAs and all kinds of stuff about my work. But that being said, the perception of the public is molded by the judges that they interact with when they come into a courtroom. So as a judge, you have to be impartial and fair and listen to each person and treat them with respect, because whether you agree with what they're arguing in your courtroom or not, their perception of the justice that's being meted out is going to be formed by the respect and the attention to the individual. And that is what I meant by that. I hope that helps answer.
All right, thank you for that. Now, let me just, a couple of things. Can I just say it, Judge Drew? He came up to me. A couple of things, points of information that are relevant to this office. One is a Superior Court judgeship does have a term. It's 8 years, correct? 6 years. Sorry, that's why I should have had Judge Drew do this. And the second thing is the presiding judge of LA County Superior Court can assign any new judge of the Superior Court to any court or branch of the court anywhere in the county. With that, though, you have a sample ballot that's been mailed to you. All of those that attended this are among the most knowledgeable of the electorate in terms of who should be voted for in terms of these judicial offices. I hope you will pass along that information to your friends and neighbors. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I want to thank all of the candidates for taking their time, not just in the morning, but in the afternoon. And with that, that concludes this year's Judicial Candidates Forum. Thank you all.